I'm Chris Sangster, and welcome back to the studio. Today, we have an exciting new piece of gear to check out. Now, I know gear reviews aren't generally my thing on this channel, but I was so excited for this to come out, I just had to share it with you all. It is the Telepathic Instruments Orchid, a brand new take on the synthesizer and on music creation in general, honestly. I was lucky enough to get one of the first 1,000 units, and it's finally here. It's right here in this box. So I bought this with my own money. This is not a sponsored review. Telepathic Instruments has no clue I'm making this video. I'm just really excited about this thing. Telepathic Instruments is owned by one of my favorite artists, Kevin Parker, better known as Tame Impala. And their first product is this, the Orchid, a new take on the keyboard that combines buttons and a 1-octave keyboard to generate chords. Sounds a bit weird, I know, but it's so simple to use and it makes creating lush, complex chord progressions an absolute breeze. It includes 40 awesome sounds right out of the box, with more on the way, and a host of other features like an arpeggiator, a pattern generator, even a separate bass synth. I'll dive into all of that awesomeness in a bit, but first, let's get this bad boy unboxed. All right, we've got the Telepathic Instruments Orchid right here in this box. I'm really excited to get this thing open. I've been waiting for this for a while now. I've been very excited to get my hands on this thing. Can't wait to check it out. Right off the bat, we've got a cool bright orange carrying case. I believe I got the carrying case as a gift for being one of the first 1,000 to purchase one of these. But first impressions, love the carrying case. Great bright orange color. Feels well made. It's got kind of a hard suitcase feel a little bit to it with these nice fabric straps. Really like that. So let's open it up and see the bad boy. Oh, cool little logo there. I believe that's the Telepathic Instruments logo, the eye. I like that. So let's unzip it here. See which way around is it. I think it's this way. Oh, a little more unzipping to do. And there she is. Initial impression, it looks awesome. I love the design of this thing, the all black with the tan backing, super cool look. Looks like we've got a few pieces of documentation in here as well. Let's have a look at those first. Set the Orchid to the side for a second. This little postcard here, just kind of a thank you, welcome to the garden. That's what they're calling their community. Looks like I got number 156 of 1,000. That's pretty cool. Got a pretty early number there. So yeah, just a nice little thank you from the Telepathic team. Heavy Tame Impala vibes there on that postcard. All right, and we've got this 4 chords book. What's this? Oh, looks like it's just kind of like a notebook. Little paper notebook, I guess, to write down your ideas or your patch settings, probably something like that. That's cool. That's a cool addition. I like that. So no manual included, it looks like. That's interesting to note. I'm sure they're going to have something online. And then just a little boilerplate compliance statement deal. All right, let's have a closer look at this thing. It's not super heavy, but it doesn't feel cheap, I wouldn't say. Let's check out the keys. They're really light. First impression of those keys are they are super light action. Buttons feel pretty nice. Not super heavy action, but feels pretty solid. Knobs are really nice. I like these 2 knobs. Nice knurling on the sides. All of these knobs are stepped rotary encoders. Yeah, they all feel really nice, well made. All the knobs feel super nice. The keys, really light action. I do believe they're velocity sensitive, but these are probably the lightest actioned keys I've ever played. They do feel a bit toy-like, and yeah, that black finish, man, that's going to be a fingerprint magnet, isn't it? And we've got some basic documentation here. I wouldn't call this a manual by any means, but kind of a basic setup guide and a quick overview of the instrument. And one thing to note, no cables included at all. I'm searching here to see if there's anything, but No cables included, so you got to provide your own cables, which isn't that big of a deal. And honestly, all of this for, I think I paid like $580, $590 for this. So all this for that amount of money, pretty solid. Wouldn't expect much more in terms of fit and finish or included extras at that price point. But it's all about how it sounds, so let's fire it up and take a listen. So the super unique part of the Orchid is in how we create chords. Instead of playing multiple keys on the keyboard, we simply hold down one or more of these buttons on the left in combination with just one note on the keyboard on the right. This top row of buttons selects the chord type that we're going to play. We have diminished, minor, major, and suspended. Then the bottom row of buttons adds a chord extension if we want it. A sixth, a minor seventh, a major seventh, a ninth, or any combination thereof. So let's say we want to play an F major 7 chord. We would hold down the major button and add the major 7 extension button, and then simply press the F key on the keyboard. Super cool, super simple workflow. The sound that the Orchid is generating is controlled by these 3 yellow knobs to the left. Scrolling the first one changes between the 40 included sound patches. The second controls the perform function. If we simply click the knob in, we will see the different performance modes. There is strum in 1 or 2 octaves, which is a simple rolled chord effect. Then there's slop, which is kind of a sloppy, more humanized rolled chord. There's an arpeggiator in 1 or 2 octaves, each having the ability to do 8th or 16th notes up or down or both directions. Then there's pattern mode, which includes different rhythmical patterns. Lots of great possibility for creation in these patterns. And finally, we have harp mode. Just listen to this one. It is so freaking cool. Man, I love that. The final yellow knob controls the effects. And if we push it in, we see that we have 3 different effects to choose from. These 3 change based on the sound patch that we choose. And we could get any combination of reverb, delay, phaser, chorus, ensemble, flanger, tremolo, or drive, depending on which patch is selected. One of the features that I really like is that we can press and hold either the perform or FX knob and lock in the current setting. We'll see that this LED to the right illuminates when I do that. Now I can change the sound patch without changing the pattern or effects. And I find that really helpful to expand the possibilities of sounds we can create. The final element that can be added into the sound is the bass, which is controlled with this orange knob here. Click it to enable the bass. Again, an LED will illuminate next to it when the bass is on. And then we can rotate it to choose between the 12 different bass sounds. These will play a low note underneath the chords. We can also click and hold this knob to further edit the function of the bass synth. The best part here is that we can solo the bass to play it on its own, which really expands the possibilities. We can play melodies, chords, patterns, chords with bass, patterns with bass, and bass on its own. Just so much we can create with this little machine. Love this 808 sound, by the way. These 2 larger knobs in between the chord buttons and the keyboard control the voicing. This bigger one for the synth, and then this smaller one for the bass. So as we turn either of these to the left, the highest notes will move down an octave. And inversely, as we turn them to the right, the lowest notes will move up an octave. This way we can get the sound in any octave we like, even though we only have one octave available on the keyboard. The remaining black knobs control other features of the synth. This one right next to the yellow knobs is called key, and it is particularly handy. So one of the selling points of the Orchid is that it makes it super simple to create complex chord progressions, even if we're not a keyboard player or very well versed in music theory. While it's certainly easy to create chords, even if you don't play the piano, the music theory part, I wasn't so sure about. Even in practice, as I'm combining the chord buttons with the piano keys, I find that I'm really using my knowledge of music theory in order to play this instrument. How would we know which chords to put together, which chord types or extensions to use, if we don't have at least a basic understanding of functional harmony? Well, the Orchid has a solution for that, and it's this key knob. Simply click it to turn it on and then rotate it to set the desired key. Then any note we play on the keyboard will automatically play the correct chord associated with that note in that key, even without using one of the buttons. We can then just use the extension buttons to add extensions onto those chords if we want. This completely delivers on the promise of allowing someone who doesn't know theory to create complex chord progressions with ease. We literally can't play a wrong note in this mode. It's a very clever feature. We have a looping mode available where we can create up to a 16-bar loop and then play melodies on top of it. The BPM knob here adjusts the tempo, and a simple click in of this knob will turn on the click track. I really like that feature. Then we have the options button, which allows us to access all of the options and settings of the Orchid by clicking it. There's a lot to go through in there. And then finally, we have the master volume knob, which actually has a few unique features. First, a single press will display the battery life. And secondly, if we press it down and hold it and then turn while still pressing it down, it raises or lowers the level of the bass independent to the keyboard sound. Really clever feature. I really like that. So by default, the sound comes out of these two speakers at the top. They're nothing miraculous in terms of sound quality, but they get the job done for auditioning ideas or just having a play around. Here's a little bit of what they sound like as best as I could capture it. I actually found the bass pretty hard to hear on these speakers, especially when it's playing really low notes, but honestly, that's not surprising given their size. And I think they're perfectly functional, but not how I'm going to use the synth most of the time. So if you move around to the back of the synth, we'll see our other output option, which is a headphone jack. Now I knew this going in, but I must say this is a bit of a disappointing feature of this keyboard, especially if you're going to use it in a studio environment like I will. To get a proper stereo signal into my interface, I had to use this little 1/8" to 1/4" stereo splitter and then run 2 1/4" cables into my UAD Apollo. The sound quality is still pretty good with this setup, but I would have loved to have seen 2 proper 1/4" line outs in addition to the headphone jack. We do have a 5-pin MIDI port for connecting to other MIDI devices, which is great to see. And then finally, we have the USB-C port, which is dual purpose. First of all, it's for charging. This unit is lithium-ion battery powered, so it must be charged. One quirk is that we have to use the USB-C cable plugged into a wall charger in order to charge it. We can't charge it off of bus power, which is a bit strange to me. Luckily, an iPhone charger does the trick, and the battery life seems to be pretty solid so far. It also turns itself off after about 10 minutes of inactivity to save battery, which is nice, but I think it would be nice to be able to turn this feature off, especially if we are in a session. We don't want to have to waste time booting back up when we just want to use it in the moment of creation. The second function of the USB port is to send and receive MIDI. It does not send audio via the USB cable, but it will act as a MIDI controller and send its own MIDI data into our DAW. In connecting it to my system, I found the Orchid to be very plug and play. I plugged it into the front of my Mac Studio via USB-C, and my computer and Logic Pro recognized it right away. However, I did experience some bugs where the connectivity would drop out unexpectedly. I'm sure this is something that will be fixed in a future update, but it is something to be aware of. When it does happen though, all I had to do was shut the Orchid down, unplug the cable from my computer, wait a few seconds, then plug the cable back in, and then power up the Orchid. It displays the word MIDI on the LCD when it boots back up, and it's good to go. When it's connected via USB, the Orchid will send out 3 channels of MIDI. On channel 1, there's the performance information. For example, this will be all the notes that the arpeggiator is playing broken out into individual MIDI notes. On channel 2, it's just the bass MIDI information. And then on channel 3, there are the raw chords. This is kind of like a backup, as it's not strictly needed to play back what is recorded, but it's really nice to have access to in case you want to layer another instrument in your production with the same chords. In Logic Pro, this means we can set up 3 separate MIDI tracks to record each of these channels separately. Add an audio track to record the live audio, and we have a very flexible recording setup with the Orchid. One other little recording quirk that I found is that I can trigger the Orchid through my other MIDI keyboard, but it seems that I can only play melodies with this. I can't trigger chords or performances. Maybe that's user error, I'm not really sure, but it's nice that you can play a melody in multiple octaves with the sound of the Orchid by using a separate MIDI keyboard. That certainly adds another layer of sonic possibility to it, although being able to completely control it with another MIDI keyboard would be a cool feature. As you could probably tell, I really like this thing. The combination of the unique creation process as well as some truly awesome sounds have completely won me over. Being able to create something that sounds like this so simply is just incredible. There are a few other small features that didn't fit into my main overview that I absolutely love and want to share. First is that you can change the LCD to display more than just the name of the chord. And I really love Geek Out mode, which shows you the name of the chord, the note names within the chord, and a diagram of where those notes are on the keyboard. That is some music nerdery after my own heart right there. And speaking of music nerds, if you press 3 of the chord extensions together, it calls the chord a jazz chord. And if you press all 4 of the extensions together, it calls it a WTF chord. Man, I'm just a sucker for little Easter eggs like that. The different play styles in the options menu is also a nice thing to have. They give you more control over the exact behavior of combining the chord buttons and the notes. I also really like that adding extensions to already held out chords is as easy as pressing the button down while holding the others out. Super simple. And it can't be said enough, the sounds are really good. They are certainly in an indie rock, indie pop kind of lane, as one would expect from Kevin Parker. But if that's your thing, like it is mine, these sounds will be immensely useful. So this being a first generation product, there are certainly some bugs that still need to be worked out, and the Telepathic team are currently working on those. They've been super communicative and helpful during the release of this product, and they're great at listening to and responding to feedback from the community. Big kudos to them for that. Certainly not every new audio company works like that, but these guys are really doing things the right way, and I really appreciate that. So with that in mind, there are a few things that I would love to see added to the Orchid in the future. As I mentioned, 1/4-inch lineouts would be great. Obviously, this would have to be in a second version of the product, but it would be a very welcome addition for anyone in a studio environment. In terms of functionality, I'd love the ability to save patches you create. Currently, it doesn't have that. I'd also like more control over the effects. I'd like to be able to choose any of the available effects for any of the sounds, and not just be limited to the 3 that are pre-chosen for each sound. I also think it would be great if we could add more than 3 effects to each sound, as well as have some more fine detail control over the effects settings, beyond just the level. Things like decay time on reverb, or delay note value, or feedback, stuff like that would be great to be able to tweak. Having the BPM automatically sync to the project BPM of the DAW would also be an awesome feature to see added. As it is currently, we have to remember to match the BPM on the Orchid to the BPM of the DAW. Certainly not hard, but an easy step to forget in the moment. And finally, a tap tempo function would be another awesome addition. So I love this thing, obviously, you can tell. But we haven't discussed the unfortunate elephant in the room yet. And that is, you can't buy this thing right now. I know, it's a bummer. The initial run of 1,000 units is long sold out, and the second run is yet to be announced. But I'm very hopeful that it's coming soon. Like I said, the Telepathic Instruments team has been awesome, so I believe them when they say they're working on the next batch. If you want to get signed up for the wait list to be the first to know when it becomes available again, I'll put the link in the description box below. Thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed this different style of video from me, drop a comment below and let me know. I always appreciate your feedback, and of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you at the studio next time. Thanks.